I am Jeff Itkin, and I'm joined by my esteemed co-host, Schuyler Hunt. This is Meet the Sockers, and this is the podcast where we make the sound pew at the top of the episode.
If you're not watching on the Twitch feed right now, what you're not seeing, what you could be getting if you subscribe to our free Patreon, is Jeff is on the left and I'm on the right.
It's strange. Yeah. It feels like we're fighting or something.
Do you feel more inclined to like make a really bad pun, and do I feel more responsible?
You always feel responsible, and I always feel inclined to make bad puns. So, yeah, probably.
Okay. Well, all right. So there's no Freaky Friday happening, but Jeff and I are on opposite sides of the screen. We'll see. Maybe this is the new format. Maybe our fans will be into this.
Ooh, could be. Could be. What do you think, fans?
No, we hate you. I don't know who that was. Felt like a kid. We should start off by apologizing if you listened to that last episode of Meet the Sockers and you're back for more.
You've already made it to the end of your podcasting queue. You've run out.
You need to see a therapist because you are abusing yourself, because in that last episode, we did it live. We did it live in London, which always feels exciting. And what happened, Jeff?
It got echoey. I don't know. It's one of those things where this is now our second podcasting recording thing, and it seems to be a second problematic software for us. But maybe it's one of those things where if every roommate of yours is an asshole, then you're the asshole. So maybe I don't know. Maybe we're fucking it up. I'm not sure who's to blame. But we do apologize for the audio.
Well,
but you know what? I think that you were not treated very fairly. I mean, obviously you made some mistakes, but I believe that your mom should go on Instagram and defend you for those audio mistakes, because you're a world-class podcaster, and if people don't appreciate you, then god damn it, they can.
What's funny is I feel like you're referencing someone in like football, but there's a number of people you could be referencing whose mothers have defended them in recent days.
Really? How many? I was specifically referencing Maguire because I thought.
Oh, okay.
His was the most egregious of like his mom being like, that wasn't nice the way those boys cheered at that game.
Leave Brittany alone.
It brought up a weird thing because I have kids and I always think like, well, I'm sure that I will have a strong opinion if and when there's controversy surrounding one of my children, but there is a certain logic to just like, all right, is there anything that Harry Maguire's mom can say on Instagram that's going to make this situation better for Harry Maguire on Instagram or in reality?
It's interesting. I think about that all the time. What would happen if I committed some atrocity? Like would my friends be like, no, that's not Schuyler, or would they be like, we had our suspicions?
That almost sounds like you're referencing Russell Brand, but I don't want to get us way off topic.
So there's Russell Brand. I also thought maybe you were alluding to, and I'm going to butcher his name, but is it Rubiales, the Spanish National Federation president?
This is the kisser, right?
This is the guy who kissed. Was it Jenny Hermoso? Is that her name?
I would believe that. I can't tell you if that's true.
Here at Meet the Sockers, we tell you everything we believe, and nothing more, nothing less.
The podcast where you Google it yourself.
So that guy had like double and tripled down on like, no, she wanted it, and then Jenny Hermoso,
like amazing, like what a response! Like there's so many other things he could have said that are not quite as hardcore as that, you know.
It's like, bro, she's suing you. She did not want it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, I even wonder, like, if he had just said at some point, like, I'm sorry. It was a crazy moment. You know, I was overcome.
I behaved inappropriately.
It was a mistake, and I'm very sorry about that, and I hope that I didn't take anything away from this amazing athlete. Yada yada yada. I feel like I don't know. Well, actually, I don't know. Let's war game this out. If he had said all that, do you think he keeps his job?
Yeah.
I think he might. I think he would have a chance.
In Spain?
Right? like, it is a weird thing when sports go co-ed because people do strangely sexual stuff on sports teams all the time, even at like a very low level.
Paul
Like
Scholes and Ryan Giggs. I know, sorry, Paul Scholes and Gary Neville made out after like winning. I want to say the Champions League, but like, there's a picture of them just full on making out, and like, nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying, I'm supporting that point that there are crazy moments of just like, oh, your whole life is boiled to this. A lot of emotion. It's the behaving like a shithead afterwards that's the reason that he's gonna probably. Has he been relieved yet of his duty?
I want to say that he's gone now.
It's been a lot of time.
Any of these people like Russell Brand, or have they also had their mothers go on Instagram to defend them? Because that would be amazing if she was like, as you can see, my son, very handsome. Like, I don't know what accent that was, but
she'd be like, any of these young ladies would be lucky to end up with my boy,
my 60-year-old soccer executive.
It's so gross. It's so gross. Everything is gross right now.
Everything is gross right now. Truer words, my friend. Truer words have never been said.
So let's start with what's gross in United stuff. So we had that long international break after Jeff's team, Arsenal, stole a win from my gang of unlikable shitheads. and that I've had to sit with that for a few weeks. There was an international break. We got to see Folarin Balogun scoring a goal. It was a nice goal, and he scored a goal for club and country in the last week.
He has.
He's looking like a pretty good ass player.
He looks good, which is pretty amazing. And really, I feel like we've covered this, but maybe only in passing. That transfer worked out about as well as it possibly could have. Because for a minute there, it looked like Chelsea or Tottenham even were like more likely than him going out of the country. And I'm just so glad that he's ended up in some other country where he still gets to play at a very high level, and he will keep his boots sharp, I imagine. Is that what you want? I
want them to be soft. I want them to be soft and flat.
He will keep his boots sharp on one side, but soft and flat on the other. They'll be like pampered chef-made boots that he can utilize for the U.S. national team to make cooking more convenient.
You've heard of finger food. But we did get to see the United States pick on some very bad national teams over the international break, and Harry Maguire score a beautiful goal for England. It was a goal, right? He didn't just pass the ball to someone who poked it in. I thought it was an own goal.
Yeah, it was an own goal, I believe.
So Harry reminded us of why my spirits are low. And then we've got first Premier League action in a while. Manchester United at home against Brighton, who had beaten us 3 times in a row.
I mean, because you seem to be pretty down on United right now, and I don't want to steal your thunder on that, but on some level, are there 2 pills being offered to you here, and one of those pills is be down on the fact that you're losing to Brighton again, and the other pill is admit that Brighton is real good now?
Like, none of those make me feel better.
Yeah. Because there's a little part of me that thinks, I don't know, is it crazy to think that they would get top 4 this year?
That's not crazy. But this isn't Meet the Soccers, a podcast where Jeff's excited about Arsenal and Schuyler's excited about whoever's successful.
True. But
so I'm bummed out.
But I don't know. And this was at Old Trafford, or this was
at Old Trafford, and Danny Welbeck opened up the scoring.
He's a guy that I literally, for a little while, I kind of thought he was retired, like when he moved to Brighton. And the fact that he's like still having like a decent career is just so strange to me.
He's still having a decent career in his mid-30s. Brighton had just lost their entire starting midfield to all of the other teams that were acting like vultures. And Brighton, what do? We got extra midfielders at home. And like they got was it Mahmoud Dahoud? I think his first name is maybe Mahmoud, but I'm probably fucking that up. It's Dahoud. And then shit, who was the other guy? He was right in midfield. Meet the Sockers doing live
Sometimes we do
research.
it for you, but we do it during the show.
Yeah, you're not here for the quick references. Oh, it was Pascal Gross, Adam Lallana, Billy, Mahmoud Dahoud. Okay, I fucking nailed that. Great,
Yeah.
good for me.
Wow.
They
Should have been
have
confident.
they have some good players. Like,
They
I
do.
mean,
And
even they
it's hard
brought.
to tell what the
Sorry.
deal is with them. Or I mean, there was somebody had passed around this meme, not to relate everything to Arsenal, but Arsenal have famously bought a lot of or tried to buy a lot of players from Brighton in the last couple seasons. And one of those players scored yesterday, Trossard, and Ben White. I thought also had a pretty good game. But it's interesting because they've started to get that reputation of being almost like a system team where they just have such a great ecosystem going on at their club that they can plug anyone in and they'll be good. And all the players that they sell for 100 million end up being worthless. And that's, I think, mostly down to Chelsea. I think it's mostly because Chelsea's buying half their players and Chelsea's worthless. So, guys that everyone was throwing themselves at recently, now people are wondering, wait, like Ken Caicedo, is he any good?
No, he's totally good. He's just now injured.
Yeah. But
but
there
this
is
isn't
something
about.
they said that,
But this
like, they
isn't
just,
about
no
Chelsea.
matter what players they seem to have, they churn them out. They're selling them in a way that reminds me of Arsenal 10 years ago, where you always are getting rid of your 2 or 3 best players every offseason and then still somehow being competitive, which I think is pretty insane.
It's definitely the scouting system because they have to replace players quickly. They can't afford for them to like need 2 years to bet in. But De Zerbi, who initially just looked like a desperation replacement for when Chelsea bought Potter out of his contract midseason, like
No.
it's definitely a better coach than Potter. Like it feels like this guy's got an answer for everything.
Is he your next manager, you think?
No, because why would anyone want to come here?
I don't know. I think that it's always such an attractive thing to go to a big club that has a amazing history and big global brand. I mean, I really would put him on a short list to be the next United manager. I mean, I rate Ten Hag, but I think if there's any shortcomings in Ten Hag's managerial game, if you will, they've really been on display lately. I think like X's and O's, it's hard to beat him, but in terms of the man management and the psychology and the dressing room and just sort of keeping the human side of things humming along on a team, that has not been going great lately, huh?
How much of that is his fault and how much of that is us having asshole prima donna players on £250,000 a week?
That doesn't help. I mean, it doesn't help. It doesn't help that they've been committing literal crimes and things like that. Like, some of that's not his fault. There's no amount of pep talks that are going to stop you from beating people up. Man United absent 11.
So I'm showing a manual visual here by holding my phone up to the camera. We have a starting 11 of injured players, and that's not even all of our injured players.
Let's see, we got... This has Anthony on the left wing, so already a stretch. Sancho in the middle.
But you have players of every position that would be getting game time. The only exceptions maybe Heaton. But like Malacia would be getting game time, Shaw would be getting game time. Kobe Mainu looked like one of our best players in preseason as an 18-year-old. Amrabat would be starting. Ten Hag would be trying to force Mount onto the field some way if he were available, which he's not. And then Ahmad would be a great right winger while we're missing our other 2 right wingers, Anthony and Sancho. So like, all right, that's
you guys are kind of due for turning Ten Hag like into one of those weird sacrificial lamb coaches where he's had a bad run, you get rid of him, but the next guy gets all of these guys coming back, plus his own little transfer budget to change some things. Plus, and this is something that you probably don't like to talk about much because it doesn't jive with but you do have a few fantastic players. Like Rashford seems to really be back in form. Bruno Fernandes, I really rate. even though he got skinned alive on the one goal, I think Lisandro Martinez is very good. Like you have some great building blocks there, but yeah, I just think it's going to be the next manager that puts it together at this point. That's my feeling.
But because we aren't a properly run club and we don't have a director of football with a singular vision, that means when you fire the manager who has brought in 9 players, the next manager that comes in had better have the same type of playing philosophy, or you end up with all the weird square pegs in round holes that has been Manchester United for the last decade. Why was Ten Hag trying to play with Ronaldo up front? Because someone else got him that had nothing to do with the way that Ten Hag wants to play.
Right.
And this also means that the next manager is probably also going to want to play things very differently, and then they're going to need different players, and it's never going to fucking change until we get rid of these pieces of shit at the top, Jeff.
I 100% agree with that.
We will never. I don't think we will ever win another trophy until the Glazers are gone. Even with the Carabao Cup from last season, feels like a flash in the pan until we get rid of these bastards.
I mean, if you were looking for a mirror image of United in terms of just a team that had an exactly different setup that seems to be very successful instead of very sort of up and down the way that you guys have been, you could do worse than Brighton, because I think that there's probably 10 people at Brighton whose names I don't know that are making this happen, because it seems like you can swap out the personnel on the field. You can even swap out the personnel on the sideline and the coaches. I mean, Graham Potter that's a name I haven't heard in some time, said Obi-Wan Kenobi. It just doesn't, it seems like it doesn't matter. Everything is flowing. I don't know. I am rambling now, but I think they're at a point where the setup is so good, we can change around a lot of the individual pieces, and you're not losing too much. And
so is your point we should model ourselves after Brighton? Great point.
Yeah. I mean, I think absolutely. There is a part where it's like, well, at some point, can't you just put them all on a train and give them twice as much money as they're making?
Why would the Glazer stool puppets? Why would the Glazer puppets that run this company, whose whole jobs are just to give PR shields to the Glazers and hand out unpopular decisions and get business deals going, why would any of them want to give up power that they've got for a proper director of football that's going to come in and said, actually, we need to spend even more, or actually, we need to do all these uncomfortable things you don't want to do. And they're going to go, can't you just buy another Ronaldo? Like the way that the Glazers have run their football team is, can't you just throw Tom Brady on that and have him sparkle a little bit? That's what they think of sport. So I don't think that as long as the Glazers are here, and I might even say as long as they are alive, there will be no success. There'll be no success at my club.
Their very presence on Earth.
Yeah, just their existence is a curse. But since the title says United right wingers, say that 3 times.
United right wingers, am I right? United right wingers, am I right? No, I can't do it. I got 2 though.
So we are down in Anthony to domestic assault allegations, which since we last recorded, one of those people has withdrawn their accusations after Anthony posted screenshots to show that they were doctored conversations or money exploitation conversations that had happened. Who's really to say, you or I, what's the real evidence? Will the real evidence please stand up? But it made me at least double back.
You really hope that it's not another sort of Duke lacrosse situation where there's sort of a high profile false allegation, because it's a crime that is so there. It's very seldom that it is falsely reported, and so when it is in such a high profile way, it's just so damaging. But
it's almost like it gives a shield to misogynists to be we have to assume everyone's lying, so unless you can prove it with video, there's no proof. It's already pretty impossible for domestic abuse and sexual assault survivors alike to get anywhere with a claim like that. So I don't know, it any which way this is sliced in the end, it's devastating. Either he really did these things, or he didn't, and it hurts sort of the cause of other people who need to be brave enough to be able to come out against criminals. I don't know, Jeff. I want to talk about our right wing situation,
I was
but
going
it's
to say,
also like
derailed your point about right wingers,
but then also Sancho, who apparently has just had the allegations again are that he either shows up late to practice consistently or doesn't train hard. There was a story that I think Lori Whitwell, who Jeff and I had just seen live a few weeks ago in London,
him and
Lori,
his hair.
I think it was Lori that was sharing this story. So I'm sorry, Lori, if you are a listener and this wasn't you. But it was that one day, it was like the losers of a game in practice had to do, I think, 5 push-ups for losing whatever thing it was. And Sancho did 4 push-ups and then felt like he was done. And Ten Hag's like, you need to do 5 push-ups. Do 5 more push-ups. And Sancho was just like, I'm not doing that. And that's why he wasn't on the bench for Arsenal.
Wow. I mean, I have to say, I think you have to back the coach in these situations, though. As much as it's painful to lose him over a push-up in training, like in the long run, it's got to be his team. Otherwise, you're not even taking a shot anymore.
If this story is true, fuckface, you are paid £250,000 a week.
Yeah,
a week. And you can't be bothered to pursue excellence, much less do just the minimum of what everyone on the team has the same
to
rules.
do something that a JV player would find mildly embarrassing at best. Yeah.
I've fucking done them. Why can't you do them? I'm a podcaster.
This exact scenario I have done, so I should be starting. And you're like, no.
I mean, but Jeff, if a supposed superstar who demands to be on the bench at least for United versus Arsenal can't be bothered to do the minimum, like, but who else would want that? Who else would want that on their team? Would you? Would you like, even for free? Would you want someone that's got that attitude?
I mean, certainly not if he's going to maintain that attitude. But I do. He's a real candidate for a rebound. I think where he goes somewhere else and basically
in a wimpier league.
Maybe, but I mean, he's an English lad, and I think that goes a long way. I don't know. I would have loved to have him at Arsenal. I believe there was a big transfer hullabaloo between Arsenal and Man United to try to get him in, and you guys won that battle. But then it seems to have
lost the war
victory because it turns out that he can only do 4 push-ups.
Dude, Manchester United is Larry David.
In what way?
Manchester United shows up to try and win a match. You hear the music play, and someone is accidentally racist, or somebody punches a handicapped kid, and then he's just like, "But I didn't mean to. I just meant to make money." Honestly, all right. So you brought this up. You brought this up. It's that.
Have you seen
in your
the
general
clip
direction?
Yet?
No.
He was sort of asked about the season, and he was trying. But the funny thing about it is he's trying to be sort of like showing some humility and talking about how there's other good teams in the league. And he said something like, "Oh, you know how strong is Arsenal, but you know how strong is Arsenal." I'm going to say quite literally. Yesterday I saw them against Goodison Park. They are exceptional, and Liverpool again, and mentalities continue there. And then someone said Manchester United, and he just sort of cracked up laughing, which I think is probably the same reaction as many United fans themselves would have right now if asked that question. You're just sort of like, okay.
I mean, I'd be mad.
Yeah.
I'd be mad to be like the joke. We're the new Spurs, but like Spurs is good, so.
Spurs do seem to be good this year, which I'm not a big fan of. I mean, I was looking at the table yesterday, and I was in that mode. We had just secured the 3 points, and we've, done relatively well at the beginning of the season. So I was like, oh, let's see where we are. It must be 2, and then we're sort of actually right on the fringes. And, there's a bunch of teams that have had results early on. It looks like Liverpool's back. Looks like Spurs might be back. Brighton seem to be playing at a Champions League level, if not, they're in the Europa this year. It's kind of scary to think about how competitive the top 4 is going to be this year.
Well, I hope that the Europa League slows them down because if they have to play in Europe, maybe that would test their depth. Brighton, why are we just talking about fucking Brighton all day, Jeff? This is you. You've done this.
Yeah, they are really good though. I there's some part of me that just really salutes them as a team for doing it on a shoestring on a negative budget essentially.
Can I offer you an off ramp to talk about your own team?
Sure, I'd love to talk about myself and my team. No, yeah, it was a good game. We had not won at Goodison Park since Arsene Wenger was the manager. That was a stat that had been going around quite a
How
bit.
long ago was that?
It
7
was
years?
2017, I want to say, so 6 years, I guess. Um, and yeah, we've just and it's funny because in that time period, that is perhaps six of the worst years in the history of Everton, and we just can't seem to get it done at Goodison Park. We've had even some pretty key games. I mean, like 2 seasons ago when we were sort of fighting to get into the top four, it was the ascension of Arteta, and we had a key game at Everton, and it didn't go the way that we wanted it to. Um, you know, every point mattered so dearly last year. So to not take all three when Everton were relegation candidates and we were fighting to, try to win the league, quote unquote, that was a toughie. But yeah, here we are. We got the point that we needed. We got the goal that we needed to get the 3 points that we needed, rather.
So, how are you feeling right now? Give us like a Jeff emotional barometer.
Ooh, emotional barometer. Overall, I think the team has played really well. They're still so fun to watch. There is a little bit of, like that feeling where the hair on your arm is almost vertical before a storm, where, apparently Saka has had Achilles issues and Gabrielle has come off with injuries and Martinelli had and you just worry that, I mean, this is a team that's just starting to gel. So yeah, is there any amount of, everyone seems to have played double time in the last couple seasons, because we've had maybe not the same depth as a Man City or something like that. And so there's a little part of me that worries that like we could maybe regress this season even, if and when someone's hammy goes and if and when we have a bunch of players sitting on the sidelines. On the other hand, we're much better prepared for that than we were last season where, even losing one or two key players at key points in the season, really sort of that was our Achilles heel.
But it sounds like your default like baseline is you're worried about how things are going to impact a title challenge, which I'd say it's not a
Right.
bad place to be. Where you're like, if things go great, we
The
can win the
best case
title.
scenario, right? Yeah. Yeah, no, I do. It's a strange one because basically since I've been an Arsenal supporter, I have never felt this entitled and, I've never felt like this sort of confident and big headed about how well the team is playing. So hopefully they will back me up on that.
Do you think that these are going to be like the golden years, or I'm trying to like almost hype you up so far that if it's not the case, that you'll come crash back down to earth with me? And
I do kind of consider this a little bit of like a golden generation, and there's a certain expectation and anxiety that I think comes with that. I think Spurs had a similar situation recently where it seemed like the stars had aligned and, in a very homegrown way, they had sort of world-class talent all of a sudden, like a Kane. And then they'd, done some really good work in the market. And suddenly they had what looked to be a pretty competitive team. And then I think for them, it'll be a bittersweet memory looking back on that team because they didn't manage to win anything with it. And I do wonder, with the competitiveness that there is now in the Premier League, we could be a very good team for a while and not win the Champions League nor the Premier League. And then eventually sort of have those players age out and injure out and have to be sold to maximize their value. And suddenly, Saka's 26 and Martinelli's 27 and all that. And so it's scary to be in that narrow window where a team could win things. And I think we're there, but we're certainly not in the money yet.
I think it's probably emotionally healthy, Jeff, to just look at it as like I'm gonna enjoy this while it lasts.
Yeah,
Instead,
totally.
like, but I get so worried about longevity and like the future and like, I mean the Yankees were good a couple of years ago for like a minute. Now they are last place in the AL East. For our listeners who don't care about baseball, what this means is like I'm really learning like a lesson in hubris with like United, and I'm wondering if you've already learned it by virtue of having been through that long stretch of like rough
Yeah.
Arsenal years.
Welcome to
Whereas
the shit.
I went through the bratty decade and then had this really shitty last decade where things have been mediocre at best. And I think it's healthy for you to like live in the moment is something I sound like an Instagram story, but like
Live, laugh, love.
yeah, you have was it dribble pass shoot is like the live laugh love of
Drip,
football.
draft, drub.
I think that it's as much as I want you to be sad. I guess it's good for you that you can just sort of appreciate it as this is the Arteta years, whatever they're going to end up looking like. It could be great. It could be
Yeah.
additions to the trophy cabinet, or it could just be a time where it was really entertaining to watch your team play.
There is something to that where, like, some of the talk about trophies is such a like media driven narrative where it's like really what people want is something week to week that thrills them and that makes them, feel a certain way. And Steam has definitely delivered on that. Even if we just had this sort of past couple seasons and then things started to wane again, that's more than a lot of teams ever get. So I don't know. Got to count your blessings, I guess.
Or at least your X blessings, which is how much blessings you're expected to generate.
X play XB.
Your XB. Bruno leads the league in XB.
Oh man, we were up there in XB last year. There were moments where it felt fated, and then when we didn't, you realize like, oh, actually, fate isn't real. It's just who's good and who's bad, and then eventually, the rule of large numbers comes around. Um,
Speaking of who's good and who's bad, Jeff, for the rest of the season, who do you think is going to be good? Who do you think is going to be bad? What is your like top four looking like? I mean, it's
Yeah.
5 games in the season, which is super crazy to evaluate off of, but
That's
let's do it.
I think City win the league again. I think second and third is a dogfight between Liverpool and Arsenal. I think fourth is a dogfight between Tottenham and Brighton. And then after that, who knows?
Do you think that United will make the top 10?
I do. I think that like the next sort of spots, if you were like I've sort of accidentally done this in a way that is more coherent than I expected, but like if you're talking about a bunch of teams that are sort of paired off with each other fighting for certain spots in the table, I'd say the next sort of rung is like Chelsea, Newcastle, where it was like teams that either should be good just from the sheer amount of money they've spent or were showing signs last year or somewhere on the spectrum of that between those three teams. And yeah, I guess for those final Europa place, it'll be those guys fighting it. I don't know. Does that sound right to you?
I mean, it pained me to agree with you, but very rational takes. The one that I'm like kind of surprised by early on is West Ham.
Yeah.
At 3-1-1. That's like, is that not better than any 5-game stretch they had all last season?
Which is weird because, I mean, their fans were on suicide watch because they'd sold Rice and they were trying to buy Maguire, which is very odd to me. I mean, they were coming back around to him, but also that he wasn't sold because it seemed like a great deal for all parties involved. But understandably, if that's your big signing, then you might be worried if you're a team that, they were playing in Europe last year. They won a big trophy in Europe.
So they are still playing in Europe.
Right.
They're in the proper Europa League because they won the Conference League, right?
Correct. That'd be amazing if they just won their way up. Like if they won they won the Europa League this year, and then they get into the Champions League while they're playing, also in the Championship next year.
Yeah, that would be great to get relegated and win a major European trophy.
Yeah,
Disney movie would be incoming for sure after that.
like you would see every single person in East London would have like the West Ham jersey with a star above the badge.
Is that? Oh yeah, that is what the stars mean. Is that they
Champions
made
League.
one? It's only Champions League. It's not like
Well, because I guess Forest didn't win the Champions League proper, but they won whatever like the biggest European was at the time, and they have 2 stars.
So it's a star if you win the Champions League, and it's Elon Musk's Starlink logo if you win the Europa League.
That's the Ukrainian league. Yeah.
Damn it! Damn you, Elon Musk. Jeff, I wanted to tell you. Played yesterday for Nostalgia FC, my local club, and I wanted to tell you how it went. I was just the right amount of stoned for this.
Perfect.
Where like I wasn't. Not only was I not overthinking, I just wasn't thinking, and for whatever reason, I'm way better when I don't think.
Oh, that's good.
My whole team played insanely well. I talk about myself because I'm normally fucking crap, and they're normally dragging my corpse around. But in this case, everybody played really well. We beat our big rivals 5-1.
Ooh.
One of my favorite things that happened was a ball was going out for seemingly a goal kick near the corner flag, and the defender stopped chasing it down, but I chased it down basically right to the corner flag and was able to take 2 big dribbles in before anyone even noticed that the ball was still in play.
Oh, wow.
And so I got a shot off, which was saved, but then somebody else poked it home for like a found goal. Which when you're watching United, you want to see someone run, right? You want in your life.
But they will only do things that have the exertion of 4 push-ups or less.
4 push-ups or less is our maximum at Manchester United. But so we won.
It would be very bad to have sex with, because 1 push-up's worth of sex is like that's nothing effort-wise, and then once you get up to 4, it's like I'm just getting interested, and then they're done.
I for a second I was just like, is Jeff have sex weird? Jeff's like, it must be this difficult. I was doing a push-up gesture. It sounded weird just with the voice, but yeah.
He was making a very lewd sexual
audio. All right. Do you want to let's have this out. Let's have a full conversation that our listeners are apprised to. Mm-hmm. What do we want to do if we're thinking about the future of Brighton FC, Jeff's favorite club? It's easy to see what the plan is. It's easy to see what their structure is and the way that they play. What is the future of Meet the Soccers? Let's forget even how we get there. Let's have just like a visual. Let's visualize where we want to be in, let's say, 3 seasons. 3 seasons. Like, if we were going to sign contracts, we'd probably be doing 3-year deals.
3-year deals. At this point, yeah, they'd probably have us on like a 1-to-1-to-1. We'd be like in Rio territory right now.
And no payment is involved in that contract.
Well, that's accurate.
What do you want, Jeff? What do you want Meet the Soccers to be?
That's a great question. I think on some level, I don't think that we're going to out football podcast the amount of football podcasts that are out there. So this will never be the place that you're coming to for like Fabrizio Romano-esque scoops. This is not going to be the place that you come to for tactics. It's not even going to be the place you come to for like the latest transfer gossip and sort of locker room banter and gossipy stories and sort of all the, so like, the big ecosystem of like football podcasts. I don't even think that's us. I think what it becomes is like, if you just like a certain weird sense of humor that we have, and maybe if you like to see the menagerie of strange guests, not strange is the wrong word. Sorry, guests, but the menagerie of unique guests that we bring in. And, so I don't know. I think maybe a bigger emphasis on the guests would be a nice thing. Or just jumping off into into life, but through the lens of football. I don't know. What are you thinking?
I think you raise a great point. I think your proximity not only to the heart of football and the motherland of London, but also the fact that Jeff, as you know, if you've been listening, is an active comedian who performs frequently. Jeff is exposed to lots of local comedians in London, some of whom happen to like football.
Yeah.
And I think one time we did have our friend Kieran on the podcast, and he talked about Spurs, which was hilarious by itself. But Kieran, also a funny person. I think that it's the best when we're able to bring in people that can display their fandom and share their stories in a way that is funny.
Yeah, I would say, I would say if you are a comedian, or if you know comedians where football is actually an important part of their life in one way or the other, soccer, whatever you want to call it, depending on where they're from, let us know, because I would like to sort of build out the season's worth of guests who we're going to talk to, just sort of, I don't know, all the interesting chats we're going to get into that way. And so that's definitely something that everyone can participate in.
Who would be your dream guest? You could have any guest, anybody, even the king. You could call the king if you wanted to, and he'd be like, all right. I don't know how he sounds. But
yeah, that's it. He's a Cockney bloke.
Oi!
I would want it to be Queen Elizabeth back from the dead, and she'd be like, oi, wanker! And then she would admit that she actually was a lifelong Arsenal fan, but she didn't want to say it because she wanted to focus on union within the United Kingdom. For real though, I would say Alan Davies would be like, like dream guest, where it's like someone who clearly football is like a very, very big deal in their life, but also, they're just fun people to talk to in general.
So he's a comedian. Football is a big part of his life, and he supports no team in general. Jeff, you have no bias in.
No, he's a massive Arsenal supporter, of course. But I mean, I think that, like if we were really rolling like the dream machine, then it would be, there's other sort of celebrity Arsenal supporters that I'd love to talk to, like Idris Elba. Pretty much every rapper, it seems, supports Arsenal, maybe because of the guns. I don't know.
Do you think Idris Elba would hijack the podcast if we invited him on as a guest?
Hopefully. I mean, he's better than us.
We would just change it to meet the Elbas, and then like we would just let him sort of do what he wanted to, and we would sit here unless called upon.
Welcome back to Elba Toast.
Part of me, Elba Toast. That's fucked. Part of me would say Julia Roberts, just because very in the news United fan, but I
didn't know that.
Yeah, because Pep is in love with her and she supports United, and that bothers him to the point where he keeps bringing it up in interviews.
Oh no.
But I know she's a fan. I don't know how frequently she watches. You know what I mean? Like, to your point, Alan Davies is watching every Arsenal match.
Like, you could talk to him about the minutia of it. There's things that we haven't even gotten into that he would like have a strong opinion on. Yeah.
Right. And strong opinions are what we...
I do wonder that, though, like, if you had someone who is, like, sort of, I don't know, they're into it, but they're a casual fan. Kind of the way that I'm a fan of other sports that are not soccer is, like, I still think we could have some interesting conversations that way.
Oh, by the way...
It would be different,
Future Meet the Soccers. I didn't know how to bring this up with you, Jeff, but I'm banning you from watching other sports. It's just there's not enough time. I really need you focused on footy. So I'm sorry.
Good luck enforcing your ban.
Ooh, you don't think I can issue a ban if you don't follow my ban?
Just racking up the fines on this show.
You were going to be sanctioned.
Yellow card, sin bin.
Yeah, this strong letter that Mrs. Vitkun is going to be on, like, leave my Jeffrey alone.
Yeah, it's unfair. The expectations after all he's done.
What else do you want to talk about? I'm sorry, we kind of flew through our running order in a way that's historically fast.
That was pretty fast. If I was going to go for one random bonus topic from the Arsenal side of the aisle, I would say, what do you make of the goalkeeper switcheroo. Ramsdale did not start. Raya did. When he was brought in, a lot of people seem to think that he may unseat Ramsdale pretty quickly. To be fair, no one saw Ramsdale winning the last challenge that he had when he came in, and we had Bernd Leno. So I was a bit surprised to see it on Sunday.
I would bet with this whole situation that who's playing and when has been communicated in advance.
Yeah.
As long as David Raya is training well, I'm sure Ramsdale was told, like, we're gonna break up some of the matches. Europe and cups and otherwise. I mean, lots of teams have a second keeper that they try to get games to, but like, what is Ramsdale's other option? No.
I mean, as Sancho has illustrated, hissy fits are an option. They're not usually a good option, but they are an option that is very popular within the Premier League.
But if you're throwing a hissy fit on a club that's winning, which Arsenal has been a club that's winning for the last year and change, the fans will be against you. If the club is losing, then you get more of a well, maybe it is the manager's fault. What the fuck does he know?
Right.
But is he the type of player you think would throw a hissy fit, Aaron Ramsdale?
I couldn't see it. Although I think if I were him, I would certainly feel a little bit aggrieved, that, like, to me, there's just some amount of pageantry with the goalkeeping position where I think he should have been able to continue playing in the Premier League until Raya was playing in games and cup competitions and looking so good that they couldn't ignore it. Because Ramsdale has been great for us. And, this is a week where we're going to play 3 games in the span of 7 days. So I expected to see some, workload shifted around. But I was surprised that, to me, it sends a message where it's not just doing the standard cup keeper thing where he's saying, no, Raya's going to start in the Premier League and, maybe you'll get a few games in the Carabao Cup and, in the Champions League group stages and things like that. So interesting to see. I think when you look at it statistically, Raya might very well be the better keeper, but it's difficult to compare because he was playing on a team that is much different than Arsenal. Let's say
I gotta say, just because that my team has been in its own keeper search over the last year or so when we got Onana out of it, but like we've been looking at the other goalkeepers in the league for a while, just as a fan base, like United fans, and. It was Raya. It was what's his face that ended up going to Chelsea from Brighton. Sanchez.
Sounds right.
And a few of the other sort of big names. Your Diego Costa at Porto. I feel like there's some Spanish guy I'm probably leaving out as well. But like when I looked at Raya, I thought he was a ball playing keeper, but like kind of like a pretty average Premier League keeper from a stats perspective. Because as you saw, he was gettable for cheap. He was not someone that anyone was asking 50, 60 million for. And then I thought Ramsdale was great last year. So, your keeper making the odd mistake, I don't think you're going to keep switching keepers until you find one that never makes mistakes. Alisson makes mistakes.
Yeah, they all do.
Yeah, Ederson makes mistakes. I'm confused by the perception of Raya against Ramsdale. That's me. I'm not saying one is bad or one is fantastic. But I had thought Ramsdale had earned more of a runway with how he performed last year. Am I getting that wrong?
No, I 100% agree. But at the same time, Arteta had an interesting thing that he said in a press conference this week about how over the course of his managerial career, there's been 2 instances where just for tactical reasons, he wanted to change the goalie. But that same sort of, the goalkeeping substitutions and starts seem to be treated a little bit more preciously than some of the outfield positions. And he says he regrets that he didn't do it, because it looks bad when you pull a goalkeeper in the first half. But there are times where that just has to be done, where you say, actually, sorry, we're going to end up playing 3 at the back. I got this wrong. They came out in a different, setup than I imagined or whatever it is. And you want someone who just has a different skill set in there. And maybe, I don't know, maybe that sort of weirdly works where you can be very sort of exacting and cold as long as it really does just come down to logical things. And as long as that's being communicated to both of them. To be fair, Ramsdale does not seem to be crying about it. And he seems to be, there were lots of sort of photos and videos going around of him and Raya training together and laughing and joking and seeming to be great teammates. So yeah, maybe it's a good thing that we have 2 great goalkeepers that seem to be able to handle this maturely.
Isn't the nature of like players competing with each other and being friends like just so weird when you think about it? Like it's your whole career, it's your whole livelihood, it's your whole ego and like how you'll be remembered and what kind of footballer were you? Were you a champion and also ran? Were you a star? Were you like someone who just got subbed on? Yeah, like so if I'm Ramsdale though, I'm probably
narrow amount of your life that you could make millions or not in based on these opportunities, and then it would be pretty difficult to be mature about it.
Yeah, I mean, it would be difficult to be mature about it, but then how do you be friends with that person who's like trying to take your job? Whether they want to say it in those words or not, they're trying to literally steal your lunch. So like, I'm interested in how that
and it's much more acute
works.
with a goalkeeper where, I mean, theoretically, the same thing could be said of 2 left wings, except most of them, there might be some other situation where they both end up playing, maybe just because there's more substitutions, or maybe there's a guy that goes in or, also plays up front or also plays as a number 10 or something. And you can imagine scenarios where all of the players on the team end up playing together and it's sort of strength in numbers. But we're usually only starting 1 goalkeeper. That's our tactical setup. That's pretty much the way we do things. So.
Radical Arsenal with their 1 goalie that starts. You want to talk about any like life stuff? I mean, do people care? People try to kill 8 more minutes for you, ungrateful pay pigs?
I would love to hear you talk about that. I don't know. I don't have anything particular.
So Jeff, post visiting you in London, I've honestly been so depressed. It's like It was such a great trip, and it was something I looked forward to for like half a year, and for you, I'm sure a similar amount of time.
Man, I was pumped, and then it is like a deflating thing. But I guess the one thing that is sort of, I don't know. For me, I'm a creature of habit, so whenever I get to get back into my routine, there's always like a little bit of cold comfort in that. But yes, definitely not as fun.
It's not, and especially when there's like literally nothing left for you to live for. Your team sucks. Work stuff.
Yeah.
You don't have a trip to London dangling in front of you on the calendar. Like, what is left other than to look forward to the 2024 election, which will be super chill?
Yeah, that should be fine. I mean, just honestly, just try to enjoy these last few years before the Civil War, dude.
Can you get your wife to start filling out the paperwork for me to be a refugee? Because it's gonna happen.
One day you will wash upon these shores, you tired, hungry mass.
I think I'm good if you're good.
Good.
All right. Good night, soccer fans.
Good night, soccer.
Meet the Suckers. Meet the Suckers. A soccer podcast that probably won't last. Meet the Suckers. Meet the Suckers. Schuyler and Jeff don't know how to rhyme.